Directives are Angular's way of adding behavior to the DOM. Let's break down exactly what that means, starting with the 3 types you will use every day. Here are the 3 types you need to know. Component directives have their own template. That's what you're already writing every time you build a component. Structural directives reshape the DOM itself, adding, removing, or repeating elements using ngIf, and switch. And attribute directives change how an existing element looks or behaves without touching the DOM around it. Let's look at 2 full examples of each, starting with components. Let's start with component directives. A component is really just a directive with its own template. A component is just a class decorated with component, which needs a selector, this one, app badge, and a template, the actual HTML it renders. The class itself can be completely empty like this one. All the behavior for this example lies in the template, and you use it exactly like a custom HTML tag wherever you'd use any other element. Second example, passing data into a component from the outside with input. This input decorator turns name into a property the parent can set directly, like an attribute. If nothing's passed in, it falls back to there. Inside the template, we just read that property with double curly braces, same as any other class property. So from outside, you set it exactly like an HTML attribute, name equals Ravi, and the component renders hello Ravi. Now let's move to structural directives, the ones that reshape the DOM itself. There are 3, if, for, and switch. We'll start with if. This if only renders what's inside when the condition is true. Here, only when someone's logged in. And else covers the fallback, right in the same block, no separate check needed. Second structural example, for, which loops over a real array. For repeats an element once per item in an array. Here, one list item per task. Track tells Angular how to identify each one, so it can update the list efficiently instead of re-rendering everything whenever the data changes. For even has its own built-in empty state. This empty block runs instead of a loop when the array has 0 items, so you don't need a separate check just for that. There's a third one too, switch, which works like a classic switch statement for multiple conditions. Same idea, just more branches. Now let's look at attribute directives. And now, attribute directives. These don't add or remove elements. They change how an existing one looks or behaves. Let's start with a built-in one, ngClass. ngClass takes an object. Each key is a class name, and its value decides whether that class gets applied. So this item gets a done class when it's completed, and overdue when it's late. There's also ngStyle for inline styles, working the same way. But the real power is writing your own. Let's build one. Second example, a custom attribute directive we build ourselves from scratch. This directive highlights an element on hover. It works exactly like ngClass, just one you wrote yourself. The selector in square brackets means Angular applies this to any element carrying an app highlight attribute, not one specific tag. This input lets whoever uses it pass in a color through that same attribute name. If nothing's passed in, it falls back to yellow. Element ref gives us a direct reference to the actual DOM element this directive is sitting on. Host listener hooks into a DOM event on that element, mouse enter, and sets its background color. And mouse leave just clears it back out, so the highlight only shows while you're actually hovering. You use it exactly like a built-in HTML attribute. That's the whole point of attribute directives. They feel completely native. So, to recap, component directives have their own template. We saw a basic one, and one that accepts data with input. Structural directives reshape the DOM, if and else, and for with track. And attribute directives change how an existing element behaves, a built-in one, ngClass, and this custom one, app highlight. That's all 3 types of Angular directives, with 2 real examples each.